get it to do that?
I think he likes me.
Wait! Before we get started in this film that's out in theaters right now, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right at the bottom. This stars Jolo Manjuana. I hope I said that his last name right. He plays Miguel on Cobra Kai. He is a kid, just got out of college.
Presumably in Gotham, judging by his shirt. And now he's back home in the fictional city of what's it called? Panama City, something like that. It's a city I'd never heard of. And the reason why I never heard of it is because they invented it for this movie, but they introduced it in the comics just before this movie came out. Apparently it's based in Texas, so he's back home and he finds out he's missed a lot. Dad's had a heart attack. They about to lose the house. So he's like, it's very important for me to get a job so I can support my family. He's like, we're going to work really hard and we're going to get out of here, man. We're going to make it. And then, of course, hard cut to them scrubbing bubble gum off the table. You know, it's just like no one gives a damn about his degree, and he is having a very difficult time. Through a series of events, which I don't think are all that interesting, he ends up meeting the daughter of tech billionaire Ted Kord, who is one of 3 Blue Beetles from the comics, and she gives him a box, and in this box is the Scarab. He doesn't know what any of this stuff is, and Jennifer doesn't explain it, but the thing pops out, jumps on his back or up his ass, depending on if you ask his uncle, and he becomes and he becomes the Blue Beetle. I'll say for me, I went to this movie with pretty low expectations. You know, I haven't really liked a lot of the stuff DC's been doing. I'm very open to DC getting a major reboot, but I was pleasantly surprised by this film. I think this, in my opinion, is probably one of the best DC films I've seen in years and years and years. I thought this was quite the surprise for me.
This is a good entry for DC. It does have tropes in here that you've seen in almost every single superhero film, beat for beat. But the strongest parts in this film have to do with Jolo's acting. One, he's a phenomenal actor. But the root of this film is his family. Okay, I'm be honest with you. Every time he was outside of the costume and he was interacting with his family was the best parts to me.
I totally agree with you. His family unit, I thought they were very charming, they're very likable, and hilarious. That was the driving force of this film. After the movie's over, I know so much about his family. I know his grandmother was in some sort of revolution at some point. I know that his uncle, he likes Selena. I know his uncle's favorite color. I know the kind of cars he likes to drive. But then when you compare that to our main character, Jaime, I know nothing about Jaime. And this to me is the strange thing about this movie. Everyone around Jaime gets these great moments, but Jaime himself doesn't. I know nothing about him. I don't know what he likes. I don't know what he dislikes. I know he went to school for pre-law, but at no point in the film does he talk about law or show any interest in that. Like he is more or less a blank slate for the audience to put themselves in, where the people around him, I think, are very colorful.
George Lopez put a lot of the comedy in this film. He made me laugh. You know, he is that conspiracy theorist guy. The villain in this story is Susan Sarandon. I never would have thought I would see Susan freaking Sarandon in this. By the way, she doesn't look that bad. She is the leader of Kord Industries, and she is wanting to make military weapons off of the blueprint of the Scarab. And the daughter of Ted Kord is like, we don't make weapons anymore. We don't do that. We need to be helping people and all that stuff. But then there's like a henchman here. This guy who I thought that would have been a more fleshed out villain if they took a little bit more time with him.
I think the issue was when you finally learn about the henchman guy, who's really the main heavy guy, it's like milliseconds before he dies, right? It's like milliseconds for the very end of the character. So I think if they'd moved that flashback to the front, as a matter of fact, I think if the movie had started with that flashback, I would have felt more for that villain, for that character. But the fact that it comes so late, I agree. That was I think that was a mistake there. I will say I was pleasantly surprised that this movie was generally optimistic, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
And I thought it had some actual funny moments with characters that I actually cared about. There's a point in the film where the family is under attack, and in any other movie, you're like, they're not going to kill some old lady, some old man. But in this movie, I really was not sure. I was not sure. Yeah. I was like, they've already set up that dad's gonna, have issues with his heart. So I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat, afraid, not for our main character, but for his father. When Jaime's father has a heart attack in the middle of the action, I felt gutted. I felt terrible for him, and I felt terrible for the family, and I felt terrible for Jaime. And I have to tell you, I've said it a million times. Most of these like Marvel films, superhero films, I feel nothing. I feel I'm a blank slate, just like Jaime is, just sitting there like this. I could feel the loss in that moment. So actually, I really liked this movie a lot more than I thought I would. It was, to me, a genuinely good film.
I feel like in almost every superhero film, you have to have a loved one die. This happens almost every superhero. Peter Parker.
But what doesn't happen is you actually care, right? To me, I think that's the magic for this film. When the father died, I felt hurt. And when everyone wanted to cry, and the grandmother was like, "Don't cry. We can't do that. We're not ready for that yet. We got stuff to do. We'll cry later." And I felt like that felt, I could really feel that, But like you said, that in itself isn't special, but it's the execution to me that I thought was special.
Because there's like so many times we saw Uncle Ben die on screen, and that doesn't make me care.
Matter of fact, most people, me included, cheered it when Uncle Ben did not die in the newer ones, I hope to see a lot more of Blue Beetle moving forward. I know the box office hasn't been so great, and I know the executives are going to take all the wrong lessons from that, but it's kind of a shame that this movie is here, because I feel it's transition from the old DCEU to whatever comes next. I think it's just called the DCU. The transition has been bumpy and awkward and weird. There is literally another Aquaman coming out, and we all know that's dead in the water. Dead in the water. So it's been very strange.
I remember Blue Beetle to being like a part of Young Justice. He was in Young Justice, and I always thought his character was interesting, and talking to an alien life form.
This version of Blue Beetle is relatively new. He debuted in like 2006 or something, right? The Blue Beetle that I know, the one that I'm actually more familiar with, is actually Ted Kord, the one that is kind of a more of like a Batman type guy, where he builds his own stuff, and they all have like vaguely Beetle themed. But to my knowledge, is the Scarab an alien, or is it just alien technology? That I didn't know. I feel like the movie didn't really
that's what I was
care. But yeah, I feel like the movie didn't really make a distinction, or like wasn't really important. And I liked how they wove in like Blue Beetle's comic book history. He's got, just like everybody on the DC side, has a super complicated, complex, convoluted background where there are multiple guys playing the same character, sometimes at the same time, sometimes not. It's a big knot. That's very much how DC is, right? And every few years is a flashpoint to reboot everything. But this movie, I thought, found an interesting way to tie all the three main Blue Beetles together, right? There seemed to be an original Blue Beetle. Presumably he's dead because the Scarab's off of him, right? And now he's passed that Scarab on to Jaime, and in between is Ted Kord, someone who just liked the original Blue Beetle and fashioned himself after the original Blue Beetle. So the movie kind of has its cake and eats it too, right? All these different Blue Beetles exist at the same time.
And I have to give this movie props for its costume design, because it is one of the most comic book accurate suits I've ever seen.
And the fact that the Ted Kord version of Blue Beetle was even in this movie, I think is a big leap forward for DC. Don't be afraid of your corny characters. There are people like me who really like those guys. That's kind of a charm of comics. So I like that the movie not only embraced the new reboot of the Blue Beetle, where he's much cooler, much more like Iron Man, but it did not forget its more sillier roots,
His transformation is horrifying.
It is. It's like a body horror. Yeah.
His eyes will grow red, and he's screaming, and you see the smoke everywhere, and black is coming in his mouth. Like I was like, I can understand.
Yeah. When he transformed, he's like screaming. You know, he's like, and he's like, his skin is like burning. I'm like, holy crap! I was not expecting something so terrible. And then what's funny, of course, they cut to George Lopez, who was acting like a human does. He sees that shit, and he's like, oh my god, you know? Jesus. And I liked that the movie really embraced that. Yeah, having this suit is awesome, but the downside is you're naked in the suit. And so whenever he has to transform back, he transforms back completely naked. So it's very inconvenient, you know. Another reason why I like Blue Beetle, we've talked about this a couple times on this show, is Blue Beetle is often teamed up with one of my favorite DC characters, and that is Booster Gold. We talked about
Booster
before.
Gold.
Booster Gold, he's a loser from the future who comes back with knowledge of our time to be a superhero, you know. And I'm really excited to see
a sarcastic butthole.
Yes, he's a complete shithead, right? He's a douchebag. So I love Booster Gold, and so the presence to me of Blue Beetle makes me excited, because that means so maybe we'll move to more obscure, but in my opinion, very interesting characters for this new DC universe.
And I believe James Gunn, when he was doing his rollout for what his expectation is for DC, I think he did mention Booster Gold.
He did,
for sure.
You could tell that this movie sanded down some things, because obviously this movie was developed before the big DC cinematic universe reboot or whatever. And apparently it had more references to Superman and Batman and stuff like that. They got cut. So I guess this could easily slot in with the new DC universe. And honestly, for me, I hope it does, because I really liked this character. I really liked this movie a lot more than I thought I would.
I did enjoy this film. I felt that the strong points, like I said before, is the acting. The strongest point in this is his family, and each member playing a crucial part. I almost was annoyed with his sister for a little bit until she came around. I was like, all right, cool. Cool. I would like to see more from Blue Beetle. Hopefully, with that opening box office of 43 million worldwide does not stop it when it was on a budget for 104. What brought me through this film majority is Jolo's performance. I think he has a bright future in this industry, and I'm gonna give this a B-.
B-, great. I'm giving this one a B. I really enjoyed this film, and one of the things that I really liked about it is it wasn't shy about the fact that these are all Latino characters, right? Latino characters and Latino villain, except for Susan Sarandon, of course. And I always like to see non-white guy movies, because there's just so many of them. Okay, our channel is 90% white guy movies. Our characters, they spoke English, but they also went back and forth between Spanish. They spoke like a bilingual Spanglish type thing. Really liked that a lot. I liked it that when they did have needle drop moments, it wasn't some generic ass hip hop thing or something. You know, it felt to me more genuine, not only to the story but to our characters, and so I like that. But even that is really just a surface level thing here. This movie, to me, what really brings this movie in are the characters that surround Jaime. I wish I knew Jaime more. I know nothing about this guy. I understand why they did that, because they want you to put yourself in his shoes. But I think it's a missed opportunity. I think we should have had a character who makes mistakes and forgets things, or is an actual human, you know, instead of just more like a human avatar. But everyone else around him,
human avatar.
Yeah, but everyone else around him, I thought was fantastic. Even and they all brought home the theme of, like you said, family. Jennifer, who is the daughter of Ted Kord, who again was the corny Batman-y version of Blue Beetle, she talks about how while she's got a really big house, it's empty. It's full of junk, right? It's full of nothing. And Jaime has a small house, but it's like full of love and full of family, you know? And while Jaime is like...
Great sentiment.
Yeah, it was a great line, great scene. And while Jaime is like, oh, I wish we had a big house. Oh, I wish the house was better than this. Oh, we're going to have more houses. When he meets Jennifer, he realizes there's more to life than just like junk and stuff. While they're not, you know, monetarily rich, their love for one another is rare, right? Not everybody gets to have that kind of thing, and it's something you should really embrace. And I like that a lot.
Now, do you recommend this film for people to see?
I do recommend you watch this film. I say ignore the rigmarole. I know the movie didn't make that much money for very complicated reasons. Mostly, I think, because of the strike. No one could actually promote this film, right? So how can a movie make money if no one can promote it? But I say ignore all that garbage because you're not getting the money anyway.
I think you'll have a good time seeing this film. I do recommend people going to see this. But more importantly, do you recommend this film? Have you seen Blue Beetle? Please get in the comments and let us know what you thought about this. Thank you so much for watching us. We have seen our subscriber count grow because you guys are talking to us in the comments, letting us know your thoughts. So if you're new to seeing us, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button right at the bottom. And if you did like this rating and review for this film, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. Or you get the thumbs down, whichever you choose. It is your opinion, but just remember one thing, it's mostly wrong. Big bang.
No one under the age of 30 knows what you're singing.